quick teardown and review from the yellow dimension of my Cyboard with a Mitsumi Minimech laptop keyboard assembly. I was lucky enough to get this laptop keyboard assembly off of eBay in really good condition. Honestly, it might have been new old stock. I couldn't tell you. Um, and the Cyboard part of it, which sort of refers to the case and the brain, is a custom made by a local friend of mine who goes by Real ET on Discord and most anywhere else. And he does this as a business. You can find him on cyboard.digital, and he makes custom keyboard things. This is the only one that he's done with like a pre-made assembly that he sort of built a case and a brain around. Normally what he does is sort of hot swap little mini PCBs, one for each switch, and he will arrange them however you'd like. You got big hands, you got widely spaced switches, cool. You got small hands, he'll put them real narrow for you. You want like a 3-part crazy giant thing, he can do that. You want like a sub 40% ergodactyl, whatever the fuck, he can do that too. It's pretty neat. If you ever happen to end up in the Mid-Atlantic, I highly recommend going to a keyboard meetup because he'll probably be there and he will have some really cool keyboards to show off, all customs from him. Specifically, he does them in 3D print, and you can see that here. It's pretty well done, although the texture up here is a little... It's got like troughs and stuff, which, while aesthetically pleasing and has a nice feel to it, does really want to pick up some dirt. You can see just a smidge of that here, and this is pretty new. And there is not much getting that out of there, so he might not be doing that style again. I don't know. He's got good attention to detail. You can see that with this lip here. It's pretty nice. And that does a good job at protecting the switches. It looks pretty, and it matches this Olivetti numpad, which happens to have the same kind of switches and the same kind of Mitsumi die subs. But it's from a completely different kind of computer system than this laptop assembly. But I commissioned him to make the housing for this assembly match this one and make them sort of a pair. And he did a really good job at that. You can see that he did the same with the feet here, even having them stick up a little bit over the top. Although these ones go down further than the body, he ended up having the body all the way down on this thing to make room for the connector for the plug on this thing, which kind of ended up in a funny spot here on this design. You can see his logo up here, actually, which is a funky little hand. And right here we've got a slot for an LED, which is currently tucked away further into the assembly, the keyboard case, because I don't want to look at it, and I haven't yet sort of dulled it down. One of the major flaws with this thing is that he picked an LED that is so fucking bright. Holy shit, it is retina searing. It is awful. Raw must have conspired with someone to put this thing in here, put the fear of the sun into you. Yeah, I worship Apollo now. It's the only way to preserve my eyesight. Moving on to the back of this thing. I requested that he add a speaker, and he added a speaker. You can see the speaker grill right here, and he did a really good job balancing the volume of it and the pitch of it. It sounds really nice. Not quite as nice as my MPEX 219, but it's really hard to compete with that, especially when you are limited to the weird chirping noise that QMK has decided is an acceptable beep noise. Really, any kind of good beep that you can achieve with a QMK controller is in spite of QMK rather than because of it. Jesus Christ, who decided on that? That's not his fault, though. He's doing the best he can. You can also see a little reset hole here you can stick a paperclip down into. But since all of the Cyboards are made with vial compatibility, and it even includes the custom layout, which is pretty nice for the funky layout that this laptop assembly is, I haven't felt the need to use that little reset hole, nor do I ever plan on it, but it's a nice little feature just to have. It's also got a huge rubbery, grippy back, which is really nice. It grips the fuck out of my table. Like, if I try and move this thing, the desk might come with it. I kind of got to pick it up to reposition it. Um, and I would worry about it being like so grippy that it would like take up the corners, but it's not going anywhere so far. So I think pretty good choice there. I've only had it for a couple of weeks, but I haven't been gentle with it. It's also got a fair number of screw holes here. It's currently coming apart because I already took the screws out, because I can't be asked to take those apart on camera or to do a cut. But the screws go in there, and they have washers that come with them, which is pretty nice. Really, no corners cut here, except, of course, for the actual literal rounded corners, but that's very nice and comfortable, even when disassembling, which I quite like. It's a pretty nice setup. On the back, real quick, we have a port right here, which matches up with the Olivetti thingamajig. Ooh, let's get that in the camera. Yeah, it's close enough, you can see that. And we have a USB-C here, which is currently trying to escape. There we go. And that's how you plug it in. It's a nice setup. Hard to argue against. The cutout box here, it is kind of recessed pretty heavily. So if you try and use this kind of a boxy USB-A to USB-C converter, let's get that around. There you go, USB-A to USB-C. It can't quite fit in there too well, but, you know, for any actual cable, it's fine. Now let's take this thing apart. The top, once you have removed the screws, comes right off. And as you can see, it is thick as fuck. Holy jeez. Seriously, this thing is, it is chunky. I don't know if it's appreciable on camera, just, it's substantial. It is substantial. It's got sort of cone-like legs for the screw sockets up top. Oh yeah, brass screw sockets inserted in there. It's really no corners cut. But the conical shape is sort of to do with the 3D printing process to give it a nice bit of support, I think. Haven't really asked him about it. Overall, I like the top case. Hard to argue against it. In here, we can see the laptop assembly is also held in place by screw. Wow, jeez. Focus. There we go. By some screws, which I have also removed, and brass screw sockets underneath there. Same kind of screws as hold the case in place, so they're interchangeable, which is nice. That way I don't have to like keep them separate and worry about losing one but not the other. Nope. All the same, really nice. You can see the sockets where the cones that I showed you before go in. Good stuff. And of course, here we've got the brain. We've got an Elite C down here. We have the actual port for the Olivetti that we added on. Here is, come on. You want to come out? There we go. Here is Ra's avatar, the bringer of light, the LED, the smoker of eyeballs, on a nice long set of wire. Ooh, that's a little clipped up. That was not like it before I made this video. That is my fault. That is my fault. And of course, we've got the speaker hidden down here. We do have some weird star-headed bolts here to hold this in place, which I can't say that I love. I don't have a star-headed screwdriver. Actually, I do have one of those. I'm lying to you. But, like, I don't want to get it out. That's a pain in the butt. Kind of a bummer that he couldn't use the same stuff for this, but, you know, I'll live. Probably for the best that I don't fuck with it too much. The laptop assembly, of course, didn't have a brain. It just was a straight matrix out to the laptop. So I can just kind of pull these thingamajigs out. One of those is the rows. One of them is the columns. And then, come on, play nice. There we go. And then it comes out, which is pretty cool. Goodbye. Sitting over there. Quite happy. As you can see, brass screw sockets in the screw holes that hold it in place. And we've got this big trough here for the cables under there to sort of squeeze their way into. It's definitely wider than it needs to be, but, better safe than sorry. The rest of it, though, is just solid as fuck. That is just, I think 70% infill is what he said. Just solid 3D printed. There's no cavity in there. There's no foam. That just supports the laptop assembly so it doesn't bend out. Because it doesn't have a plate. A lot of mini mech things just don't have plates. You can see it here. It's got like foam. I think that Mitsumi got hip to PE foam modding things back in the 80s, and they just did that. Actually, this might be 90s. It's mini mechs. It's probably 90s. Either way, they just PE foamed it stock, and that is how it is. But it doesn't have a plate, and so it's really flexy. And so having this support here is probably good. Although, is it better for sound than actually having cavity? I'm actually probably going to have to wheel out the Unitech K151L to compare. That might be a fun future video. But, as you can see, this whole thing has had a lot of attention to detail and thought put into it, and I fucking love it. This is one of my favorite keyboards now. He charged me about $200, actually exactly $200, to do the case and the brain and the little plug and all the programming, so it's all Vial compatible, including the numpad. That's also included in the Vial compatibility. And I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with it. Considering the amount of effort that he had to put into this and the quality of the construction and the materials, totally worth it. Dude did great work. Really happy with this thing. Highly recommended.